Earlier this week, we showed you results of a nationwide New York Times Siena poll that shows President Trump's approval at just 20% among Hispanic Americans. As for what that means for the midterms, a new Harris Univision poll shows Latino voters in swing districts still very much up for grabs, with 52% of the voting bloc saying they still are undecided or could be persuaded when it comes to candidates in their districts. Let's bring in the CEO of Univision, Daniel Alegre. Daniel, always great to have you with us. Let's walk through some of your polling, but also the larger question of how a president who 18 months ago won 48% of the Latino vote, a huge number for a Republican president, down now at 20%, at least in that New York Times poll. Obviously, Latino voters have the same concerns of all Americans, which is their pocketbook. The economy is not good. But what else do you think is driving that number?
Well, Willie, thank you for having me. And, the reporting that Lydia just showed is what we do at Univision. We really fundamentally are the voice of Hispanics and need to be very, very close to all the issues that matter to Hispanics. This poll that we just released is part of our overall strategy of making sure that what really matters to Hispanics makes it to the forefront. In 2024, what we saw is a fundamental change of how Hispanics view the big issues that matter to them. Before then, they were essentially a predominantly Democratic vote. And in 24, that shifted to be an issues vote. What are the issues that really fundamentally matter to them? And at that time, and is still the case now, as we saw in the poll that we released just yesterday, it's all about the economy. It's the cost of living, the cost of groceries, the cost of gasoline. And in 24, they voted for that specific reason. And the polling that we released yesterday shows not only that those are the issues that really matter, but the Hispanic community is really suffering. There's a very interesting number that 73% of Hispanics here in the United States feel that they are just barely surviving. It's not that they're saving or they're thriving, that they are surviving. And 80% of Hispanics lend to other people in their community. So they're really feeling it across the board. And you're seeing that reflected in the numbers that we published yesterday.
So, Daniel, much has been made of the inroads that President Trump and Republicans made among some Latino voters in 2024. We see poll after poll that support has eroded. But yet, as we're showing on the screen right now, 52% of Latino voters in swing districts remain undecided. So they haven't necessarily been swayed, it would appear, by what Democrats are offering. Tell us more about what you found.
Well, that's exactly the point. It may be surprising to your audience, but Hispanics have yet to decide who they're going to vote for. And this is an issue on both sides of the aisle, both on the Republican and the Democratic side. As I said, Hispanics are feeling the pain. As the largest Spanish media company, Univision, we want to make sure that their voice is heard. So we have a very significant Get Out the Vote campaign that we literally just started in a matter of hours. We were able to register 24,000 Hispanics to vote, and they are very, very animated and very active. Another interesting stat, between 2020 and 2024, 50% of net new voters in the United States were Hispanic. And if you just see the growth of the Hispanic demographic here in the United States, that's only accelerating. And what they're asking is, we want candidates who understand the issues that matter to us. We want people who speak directly to us. And a few examples of campaigns who've actually leaned into the Hispanic message. Tallarico, for instance, in his primary fight in Texas, he fundamentally leaned in, connected with the Hispanic community in Spanish, on Spanish media, and you saw the outcome. Cheryl and Chiarelli in New Jersey did the same thing. And Ted Cruz, when he was fighting against Allred, did the same thing. If you speak to this community about the issues that matter to them in the language that they feel most comfortable in, you'll get Hispanics and you'll get their vote.
Richard Haass, I have a question for you. To what extent has Venezuela or could Cuba affect the Hispanic vote? Are these issues that matter to them or not?
It's a great question. The Hispanic vote and the Hispanics in the United States, it's not a monolithic one-issue constituents. You may have first to fifth generation Cubans You've got Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Mexicans. For all of them, they have different points of views. Our news studios in Miami are in Doral, which is a very, very significant Venezuelan community. And they were very happy about what had happened earlier on in Venezuela. But, you know, it really depends location by location and demographic by demographic, and also generation by generation how they feel about it. It happens with Cuba. It happens with Venezuela. It happens with immigration. And what is absolutely key for the candidates, if they want to win this vote, is they have to be completely connected to the local constituents and see what really matters to them, and then be able to provide a convincing argument as to why they should win their vote.
CEO of Univision, Daniel Alegre, thank you very much. Please come back. We really appreciate the reporting and analysis from Univision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mika.
Very
Thank you.
much.